So now we're covering a new topic called proteins, that is a kind of polymers. Okay. So proteins are nothing but they are the polymers of amino acids. So they are polymers of amino acids that we have to remember. And what are basically polymers? So a lot of amino acid units will combine and will give us proteins. So that is how proteins are formed. Now the question arises that what are then amino acids? So amino acids, seeing the name and breaking them down into two different parts, we can see that it consists of amino and it consists of acid. So they are basically the two functional group. In whichever compound you can see the two functional groups will be called as amino acids. Now what are these two functional groups? For example, I have say NH2 connected to a CH2, and this is connected to an acid. Now acid is carboxylic acid, of course. So you can see over here that this part over here is the amino group and this part over here is the acid group. So therefore, they're called as amino acids. Okay. And NH2 over here is also the basic group, if you know, because N contains a lone pair of electrons. So wherever these two functional group will be appearing, those will be known as amino acids. Now, seeing that a lot of amino acids combine together to form proteins, let us just see that proteins, about something about proteins that we have to mention, that proteins are the most abundant biomolecules of the living system, and they are a very important part of the body. Also, they can be said to be the fundamental basis of structure and functions of life, and they're required for growth and maintenance. So, very important part, and they're made up of amino acids. Now, these amino acids, they're actually 20 amino acid exist in nature. So, we can say that 20 amino acids exist. And so, out of these 20, most of them are 1D. So, most amino acids are primary or 1 degree. So most of them are primary or 1 degree. What does that mean? That the amino acids will be something of like this. In the previous example, that it will have NH2 connected to one carbon. So these are called as primary. So most of the amino acids, so we have seen that there are 20 amino acids which exist, and most of them are primary or 1 degree in nature. So, but there are always exceptions to the rule. And here we have got one such exception, and this exception, the name of this exception is proline. Now, proline over here, the structure is something of this sort. So we've got N connected to an H and COOH. So it has both the basic and the acidic groups present, which is very important for the presence of amino acids. And we can clearly see that the nitrogen over here is connected to two carbons, and therefore this particular amino acid, that is proline, will be secondary and thus will not be the more dominant species existing. That is, most of the amino acids are primary, but proline over here is a secondary amino acid and therefore is an exception. Okay. Now, you can call the secondary as 2 degree also. So it is a 2 degree amino acid. Now, moving on, because there are so many amino acids, we need to classify them and put them into categories. So now we'll be classifying them into certain categories. So a raw comparison, if we have to draw a raw comparison between these, we can say that we can divide them on the basis of occurrence. And on the basis of occurrence, we can put them into two categories, natural and synthetic. So natural is anything which appears in nature is the natural one, and the synthetic ones are the man-made ones. So this is a raw comparison, but if we have to give a solidified comparison, a solidified basis of classification of these amino acids, so the first is the one which is done on the basis of requirement in the body. Okay, so we have to divide them on the basis of requirement in the body, and on this basis, on the top of the chain, we have amino acids, and we are going to divide them into three certain categories on the basis of requirement in the body. And these three categories are essential amino acids, then there are non-essential amino acids, two extremes, and there is one midway, that is semi-essential amino acids. So we have divided amino acids into three such categories: the essential, the non-essential, and the semi-essential. Now, what are these? So, essential amino acids are the ones which cannot be synthesized in the body and must be obtained through diet. So, writing just a few about essential amino acid, we can say that they cannot be synthesized in the body. So, they cannot be synthesized in the body and they must be obtained through diet. So, we can just write obtained from diet. Now, non essential is a word which stands completely opposite to the essential category. So, non essential are the ones which can be synthesized in the body. Since they can be synthesized in the body, makes it very clear that they don't have to be provided from external sources, that is, from the diet. So, should they're already synthesized in the body and thus they are not to be obtained from the diet. So, the next category that we have is the semi essential ones, and the semi essential ones are the ones which may be synthesized in the body and which may we have to obtain from the external sources. So, they either we can say that they can be synthesized or have to be provided externally. So that is the criteria which makes them semi-essential, that is, which makes them come in midway between the essential and the non-essential ones. Now, the semi-essential ones, they maybe have to be provided externally, and these are done in the early childhood and in pregnant women. So, in pregnant women in early childhood, these semi essential amino acids have to be provided as they are required by the body and they cannot be synthesized inside the body. So, they have to be provided from outside. So, outside supply is required. Now, a few examples if I have to just give one example of each. So, essential and non essential, the 20 are divided into these two categories, and the essential can be valine. So, an example of essential is valine, and an example of non essential can be glycine. Okay, so these are the three categories which arises when we divide the amino acids on the basis of requirement in the body. Okay, so this is the first classification of amino acids.